I'm Joanna Garzilli. You're watching Life Stories. Today, my guest is Felicia Bender, numerologist and author of Master Numbers. Felicia, welcome to Life Stories.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted, actually.
Good. Because we wouldn't want to if you weren't delighted.
I know. It's funny because I'm from California originally, and then I'm back here for the first time in a while. So it's
where in California are you from?
I was born in Burbank, and then my formative years in Valencia. So yeah, it's really always like seriously like coming home. So.
What was it like growing up in Burbank?
You know, I don't remember Burbank, but I do remember Valencia very, very well. And it was it's one of those things to think about now. It was farmland back then, you know, canyon country. And so my family bought this, you know, new start, in the developments there. And that's where I lived in my formative young years. Those are very fond memories, actually. So.
Were you studious?
Yes, strangely so. So school was always a great outlet for me, and I loved it, and it was where I found a lot of, I don't know, just a lot of connection for me. I tested for the gifted program there, which is actually kind of funny because I didn't get in, and the reason I didn't is because my math skills were so poor, and now I'm a numerologist. So
it's slightly ironic.
It just tells you, you know, anything can happen, right?
What do you think the shift that happened then?
Well, I think for me, honestly, is that numerology isn't math. It's actually another language. And so for me, math was always my most anxiety-producing subject. It was something I remember sitting on the bed with my mother doing the flashcards, you know, remember those, and just weeping, you know, because it was just, I just couldn't get it. And so when I actually came into doing numerology, I kind of came kicking and screaming. I wouldn't have, it found me, I didn't find it, and it was through a book that actually had some numerology in it, but wasn't about numerology, because I would have never ever picked it up if it would have been that way. So
let's go back a step.
Yes.
When you were saying that you were doing the flashcards, the math was hard for you to grasp, what do you feel that was at a soul level?
For me, at a soul level, I'm very creative, and so my tendency, I have a PhD in theater. I'm into the arts and to language and to music and to I really find that I study human emotions, you know, human nature, and so math just didn't ever speak to me in terms of, I was like, so what, you know, you can what? Balance your checkbook. I don't know. I mean, that's what I don't care about my checkbook, you know. And so, and especially as a child, I didn't understand the efficacy of it. I didn't understand what it could do for me on a practical level. And so what I have found fascinating is that it's come around full circle where, again, numerology is like a language. It's like learning sign language.
What piqued your interest into numerology? Is it because you were struggling with math? Is it because it was something that just fascinated you? How did you come across it?
No, it's interesting because you kind of have to go, you know, back to the future in some ways, because honestly, when I was younger, when I was in my 20s and early 30s, I had gotten married fairly young, and I was living my life. And I remember a friend of mine was really into the I Ching. I don't know if you know anything about that. So I didn't know anything about it. And I kept, you know, to humor her, she kept wanting to give me a reading. And I was like, well, all right. So we sat down. She's like, all right, so you have to ask me a question. I was like, well, what do you mean? You know, what kind of question? She's like, about your life. A question about your life. And I looked at her blankly. I don't have a question. And so there was a point in my life where I was just on autopilot, and then everything changed when my mother passed away. And I was in my early 30s, and she died fairly young at 59. And it was one of those moments where everything crumbles, everything dissolves in your life, or in my life. I had a very interesting relationship with her, a close relationship early in my life, I would say, and yet she was an alcoholic. She had other issues, and toward the end of her life really started to unravel, and she wasn't speaking to me at the time of her death, basically. I did get to see her and everything, so there was this everything left undone and unsaid and unprocessed for me, and that was really the first time where I was on my knees, and my whole world was like a Salvador Dali painting, you know. And it's anyone who's experienced that knows, I mean, we all experience death and we all experience a parent's demise, and yet it is a very transitional point, and for me it was my wake-up call. And so at that point I started having every question rather than having no questions when I was with the, you know, getting my I Ching read.
What was the question that became top of mind for you?
It was, what is this? What am I doing? Who am I? It threw me into what I call a spiritual gauntlet, and I started reading everything I could about energy, about healing, about intuition, everything. I started training. I became certified in an energy modality called pranic healing at the time, and that really moved me into this space. And yet, as I kept going, I'm a very practical, pragmatic, skeptical kind of gal, really. And so while I can be as woo-woo as, you know, as the rest of them, I guess, there was still that pragmatism that I wanted. It's like, you know what, if this doesn't affect me or on a day-to-day basis, like how to live my best life, my optimal life, I don't care. You know, I don't want to be out in the ethers. I want that something that I can carry forward in my real day-to-day earthly existence. And so, you know, flash forward some years later, and I did that bookstore, and the numerology came in, and it was just, it clicked. It became, I was like, this is my tool.
How did that, so it clicked for you? What did that feel like for you in the body? What did you feel it in the body?
Yes, absolutely.
Where in the body did you feel the click?
I felt it everywhere. It was one of those full body experiences. Have you ever had one?
Yes.
Okay, in what capacity for you? May I ask?
Spiritual.
Yes.
And other things too.
I mean, it's the goosebumps. It's just that feeling of alignment.
Yes.
That click. And so that's what it was for me. And I could not get enough after that. And I, you know, just devoured all of that information.
So at this point that you had this knowing of numbers are very important for you, how did they start to appear in your life?
What I love about this is that as we progress on whatever spiritual path we're on, I use that in quotation marks because that can mean many things to many people. I call it just self-actualization, right? And so as we dig deeper, we start to notice the smaller things. We start, I mean, even on the level of what you're talking about with numerology, people see 1111. People see repeating numbers. I have people who, you know, will have sessions with me and they feel like insane. They're like, I keep waking up at 1:23 every day, you know, and I'm like, well, you want to know what that means? And so the fun part is that it is a code. It's like knowing, again, Morse code. You can walk into a room and hear the beep, 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 and, you know, who cares? It's just static. And yet if you walk into a room and there's Morse code going and you know Morse code, you know what's being said. And so it's a very similar thing with numerology. It's this wonderful idea that we aren't alone, that there is a plan, there is something in the midst of the chaos, right? And that we checked in for a particular purpose, and that we have these tools at our ready if we would like to discover them and use them to help us along with that. And so with numerology, it's been really interesting because not only do you get the codes and the signs, and what that does is it just makes me happier, you know?
So has 1111 been the most notable formula of numbers for you?
I think for me, no, actually. I see 1111 a lot. I see my birthday on the clock. I see 722 all the time. And what that means to me is when I see it, it means that I'm doing what I was born to do. It gives me that pat on the back, or that, cheerleading, that rah-rah. And it's always when I'm working on something, when I'm expanding something, when I'm making a decision about the next step that I'm taking, and then I'll see that repeatedly. And so it just gives me this wonderful sense of ease and validation around the trajectory that I'm on. In a way that it used to be, I would just be so stressed out and anxious all the time, about whether I was doing the right thing. And so now I can, it doesn't mean I don't have anxiety occasionally, and yet it is a very validating thing that allows me to flow more with my life.
At this point in time, what do you feel most proud of? What is your greatest achievement?
Ooh, it's an interesting question. I think it's twofold. I think that I would like to leave behind something that helps people be their best selves, inspires them in some ways to align again with who they are truly, and give them tools for that. And I also would like to be a good mother. And I have 2 children who are adults now. And it's funny because the more I work with people, the more I realize how important that is. I mean, it sounds so corny, right? And yet to have an upbringing that is supportive for each us individually in our path and how we operate is very important. So for me, that's been an important element for my life also, to have that kind of relationship with my daughters.
In what way have your daughters helped you grow the most?
It's what's really interesting is also, I didn't find the numerology till a bit later in their lives, and the first thing that this tool does for me is allow me to truly see that while they are my children, they're not me. And they are on their path, they're doing their thing, and while I may be a part of it, I'm not it. And so it gives me some wonderful ways of recognizing how they're different, how to support them in their very individual way that they might respond to being supported on that level. And so what I like about it also is that at this point in our lives we're friends. We enjoy each other. So that's been very gratifying.
Do you feel that angels communicate with us through numerology?
I think so. I don't use the term angels. I kind of like a different languaging. I kind of use the cosmic support team. That's what I like to say, because it can be, some people don't, are a little angels, So I like to kind of broaden that.
Why do you think people have that
I think it has more of a religious connotation. And some people who are spiritual are not religious because they feel like religion is divisive rather than connective. And I think that that's a very basic dividing line between people who opt for religion and people who opt for spirituality.
So tell me, who are 5 people that are the winds beneath your wings?
5.
They can be living, they could be past.
Mm-hmm.
and in terms of them supporting you in the next phase of what you're doing in your life?
One of my idols is Meryl Streep. I absolutely adore her, and I just admire everything about her. The way that she has been able to hone her craft, the way she's able to be an actor and not a celebrity, that she's been able to keep her life, it seems, I don't know her, and yet she's had children, she has a long-term marriage, she seems to have an actual life that isn't tabloid material. I love Louise Hay. She's now deceased. She was the founder of Hay House, and she didn't even begin to write, she didn't write her first book, You Can Heal Your Life, until her early 50s, if I'm not mistaken. And so I love the fact that it's never too late for anyone. And she built quite a beautiful and amazing empire of getting self-help, spiritual self-help into more of the mainstream. And she did that in we all have several past lives, right, that we're always working with. And that was certainly one of her last lives that she lived. My daughters, both Miranda and Phoebe, are very inspiring to me on every level. And then I'm trying to think of a fifth. Was that only 4?
Yes, that's 4.
Oh.
So who would you like to be making an impact in the world with?
Oh my goodness.
In this next phase.
I'm actually collaborating on a book right now with Tali and Ophira Edut, who are the Astro twins. They're with astrostyle.com, and we do some really fun, I think, impactful collaboration. So we're bringing astrology and numerology together. It's not a first time that that's ever been done, and yet I think that we have a similar style and a similar desire to meet the need of an audience who's coming into this, and who really wants to live, again, like I said, in the world, and yet use these tools to make it better, and to make more, understand our purpose, understand the meaning around that, and then to even derive meaning from things that happened in the past that you can let go of, right, that are holding you back on a very simplistic level, and yet it's very powerful when we can do that.
So my last question to you is, what is one thing that you would like to be remembered for?
One thing to be remembered for. If I could simply be remembered for inspiring someone on any level to be truly who they are, that would be wonderful, whether that's through a book or through a video, or whether that's through looking at someone in the eye who's my barista at the coffee shop and asking actually how they are and meaning it. I mean, I think that the things that we do on a day-to-day level are so impactful. And so I think doing this kind of work brings you into that every single thing has meaning, and then also nothing has meaning. It's kind of this Yoda-ish sort of thing, and yet it's really something that I've come into lately.
Beautiful. I'm Joanna Garzilli. You're watching Life Stories. Today, my guest was Felicia Bender, author of Master Numbers. Tune in next time.